So good morning and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be looking at project plans and task management using Windchill. And this is primarily going to focus on the Windchill ProjectLink project. Just a quick look at the agenda. I'm going to do a quick introduction to myself and to Boundary Systems. And then I'll talk about the actual topic today. Like I said, that's project planning and task management. Just going to do a quick overview of what are some of the different options you have for each of those things, and then I'll primarily focus on the actual software demonstration and show you how you can build out a project plan, the different ways you can view that project plan, and how you can manage user tasks within Windchill. And like I said, finally at the end we will open it up for a Q&A. If you do have questions along the way, remember to enter them in the questions box. That way you won't forget them by the end when we open it up for questions. So just quickly about me, my name is Wade Morvek. I'm the Director of Engineering with Boundary Systems. I've been with Boundary Systems for over 10 years now, and I have 17 plus years of experience with PTC products, both on the CAD side, starting with Pro Engineer and now Creo. And then also, on the Windchill side, PDM-Link, ProjectLink. My experience is started out in training, and then I've moved more and more into consulting and Windchill implementations and all of those types of things. Boundary Systems is a PTC partner headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. We primarily cover Ohio and the surrounding states. Although we do reach beyond those areas for certain services. PTC is our primary partner. We do we sell the software. We also do CAD and Windchill consulting, implementations, training. We really pride ourselves on understanding the full breadth of PTC's product suite and also just general product development challenges. So we like to go in a consulting way, look at what you're struggling with, where your challenges are, and help you identify what's the best way to solve those problems. Is it is there a software solution that's going to help you? Do you have all the software tools you need? And maybe you can just implement those or utilize them better and really work with you to tailor a solution that's going to help you. In addition to PTC, we also have several other partners that we work with. I'll show you more about that on coming slides. And we are one of the largest growing or the fastest growing companies in Northeast Ohio. We've been recognized by the Weatherhead 100 for that, and also by Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing private tech companies in the country. And here are some of our partners. So again, PTC is our primary partner. We work with them, selling and supporting Creo and Windchill solutions. And then we also have some additional partners that sort of fill in some additional niche areas that maybe PTC doesn't have a specific solution for. So we have some additional simulation solutions for mold filling, Moldex 3D. Fluid dynamics with Mentor Graphics Flow EFD. We're partnered with eTraj, who helps us build custom solutions that will work with Creo and Windchill. Solid Thinking does some optimization and lightweighting type solutions. And then ZWCAD is, if you have 2D needs, ZWCAD is sort of an AutoCAD replacement. So if you do have additional questions after the webinar, feel free to reach out to myself or to sales@boundarysys.com with any of those questions, or if you need additional information. You can also get some additional information on our website at the URL shown at the bottom of the page there. And I'll put this slide back up at the end of the presentation, so if you don't have time to copy this all down now, I'll put it back up later on. So again, the main thing we want to talk about today is managing project plans and tasks within Windchill, and most of that is done within PTC Windchill ProjectLink. Before we dive into this and really get into talking about ProjectLink, I wanted to put up an additional poll question here. And so, where'd my polls go? So the next poll question is, do you currently use PTC Windchill PDM-Link? So we'll go ahead and close that poll. And so, here are the results. So you can see actually fairly evenly split. A little under half of you do currently use Windchill PDM-Link. The rest of you are not currently using, presumably not using any Windchill product. PDM-Link is more of the product data management solution, checking in and out CAD data, documents, doing things like managing revisions, doing promotions to release, managing the change process. And then Windchill ProjectLink is right in the exact same interface. It's built on the same architecture. It integrates fully with PDM-Link, but that's where we're going to focus more on project management and managing tasks. So let's hide that. And so within ProjectLink, some of the capabilities where ProjectLink adds on to what's there in PDM-Link, and you can implement ProjectLink without PDM-Link, or you can implement them together. The ProjectLink provides you the ability to build up project plans. What things need to occur, what order do they need to occur in, how long do we expect all of those to take, and then also assign tasks to people throughout that project when people need to do certain things. In addition to those, ProjectLink also gives you some tools to collaborate with outside sources, such as your customers or your suppliers. But we're not really going to focus on the collaboration aspect today. We're going to focus in on managing that actual project timeline and the tasks that are going to be associated with that. So the first thing we're going to look at is managing a project plan. So this is, how do we build up, what are all of the different activities that need to occur on the timeline within which they need to occur to successfully complete this project. And some of the functionality that you get with project plans is the ability to define the activities within that plan, the ability to view Gantt charts in order to sort of see how those activities are going to flow over the timeline of that plan. We can baseline our project plan, so we can go back and compare the current state of that plan to previous points that we've defined as critical. And then we actually have the option to either automatically or manually execute the tasks within that plan. And that's sort of a key thing that I'm going to point out in the demo here. So I'm going to go in and actually show you some of the capabilities for project plans here. So this is my Windchill ProjectLink interface. Again, if I have PDM-Link, it's the exact same interface. On my home page, I can see any tasks that have been assigned to me. And we're going to come back in a second and talk in more detail about those tasks and the different ways that they can be assigned. But right now, I want to go in and look at a specific project. And so I'm going to go to my navigator over here. And you can see I have several different sort of contexts within Windchill that I can look at. Products and libraries, that's my PDM-Link functionality. That's sort of managing my permanent vault of information for developing all of our product information. And then the project tab is going to be where I'm managing my project plans. Again, a product sort of lives on forever. We can obsolete it, but it still existed at some point. A project is more of something that has a defined start and end date. We start the project, we go through the project, it ends, and it's over. We may have another project that's similar to it in the future, but that project is done. So let's look at this Windchill enhancement project that I have. What type of information can we get from this? Well, if I go to my folders page, I actually have a repository where I can store documents and content and files that are associated with that project. So in this case, I have a couple of documents. But what I'm primarily concerned with here is the plan. And so the plan is this list of activities that are going to need to be completed in order to complete the project. And we can define predecessors. So I can come over here to my predecessors column and define, for this one, activity 1 has to complete before I can start activity 3. And so I can build up sort of a hierarchy and define, what is the actual flow of this project going to look like. And I have a lot of information displayed here. So what is the activity? The little envelope indicates if I have a deliverable. So I just showed you we have a location within this project context where I can actually store documents. I can store CAD data in there, any type of file or information that I need. And if that's sort of going to be the completed deliverable for one of these project activities, I can link that through this deliverable. I can see the duration, status, completion percentage of all of these different activities in the project, so I can quickly get an overview of where are we at within this, and sort of what's happening currently and what needs to happen next. The status down here at the bottom, we have an unknown status because we haven't started any of those activities yet. Once we start them, then we can assign a green status or yellow or red if there's something that's going to be holding up those activities. I can also go back and just view all of my projects. So if I do a view all within my projects, I don't have a ton in here, that's going to give me a list of all of the projects in the system that I have access to. So this can be a quick sort of high-level dashboard to look at, the completion status. So I can sort by completion percentage. I can sort by the status, and then I can go in and I can browse any of those projects from there. This is a quick look at the plan. I can build it with a hierarchy where I can have a summary activity. So this is a plan for sort of configuring some enhancements to an existing Windchill environment. We're going to assess the current Windchill environment. Then we're going to do some Windchill planning, which is going to involve doing some BOM management planning and then additional Windchill planning. We're going to pilot the changes based off of that planning, and then we're going to roll it out into our production system. And so we have that built out. I can view that right from here, but I can also go in and view a Gantt chart. And so here's my Gantt chart, and I can zoom in and out on there to break that down, or get if I have a very long project plan, I can zoom out and get a much more extended timeline view in there. Within here, I can select an item from the Gantt chart, and I can get a pop-up that gives me additional information, estimated start and finish, completion percentage. You can see the work complete on there. If I have milestones in here, they show up as these little yellow diamonds. So that's specific critical points in here where we're going to have milestones. So we have the configuration sign-off, and then we have the go live or specific milestones that we've defined. And we can also show deadlines within here. And so the deadline shows up as this little checkbox that indicates we need to have this this milestone completed earlier than it's actually scheduled to complete. So I can go in and get this visual representation of my current project timeline and how everything's going to flow and fit together. And right now I see that I'm actually going to extend past that deadline. And so I know I need to somehow figure out a way to compress things and shorten these durations to get everything to fit in here. So I'm going to go back to my project plan and take a look at this specific milestone, which is the pilot configuration sign-off. And if I look at that, I can go in and see, its estimated finish date right now is December 20th, and I have a deadline over here to the right of December 16th. And the things that still need to happen here is my pilot environment development and also my pilot testing and validation. And if I look at these, for each of these activities, I can assign an owner and a resource. And I'll explain sort of the distinction between those. The owner isn't going to be actually completing that activity, but they can make changes to it, and they can go in and sort of build out the plan. So instead of having a single project manager that has to define all of the details for all of these activities, the project manager can define owners for different sections of the plan, and then those owners can go in and actually make the edits that they need to, change what my expected duration is going to be, assign resources, do all of those things. So that allows me to sort of distribute control of the plan amongst multiple people by going in and, if we have different sections, we have to do a CAD design, and then we have to do a tool design for our product, and then we have to, manufacturing. Different people are experts in those different areas, and so I can assign different owners to those sections of the plan, and then they sort of become the project manager of their subsection. The resource is who's actually going to complete that. So if I look at it right now, for this activity, D'Angelo Barksdale is the current resource that's going to do the pilot testing and validation, and that's going to take 5 days because it's an expected 40 hours of work to get through doing all of the testing and all of the validation. Well, right now we just have one person assigned to do that. Testing is something we could break that up and maybe have 2 people work on that simultaneously. So I'm going to assign an additional resource to that pilot testing and validation. I'm going to say, okay, D'Angelo Barksdale is going to work on that, but we're also going to have Bodie work on that. Both of them, we're trying to get this in. We have to hit that deadline, so both of them can dedicate 100% of their time to that specific activity. And you can see it's still 40 hours of work, but now we cut the duration down to 2.5 days. So we set that specific activity up as a fixed amount of work. It's always got to be 40 hours. That could be one person working on it full-time for a week. It could be 2 people working on it full-time for 2.5 days, or it could be one person working on it 50% of their time for 2 weeks. Depending on how we allocate those resources, that's going to impact the duration. So having made that change, now I can go back and view my Gantt Explorer. And I can see, okay, now we've shortened the duration of that testing activity, and we were able to shorten that enough that now we should be able to hit our deadline, for the pilot configuration sign-off. And that's going to get us back on track. We were able to very quickly go in, and visually see where we were missing certain deadlines and make the adjustments necessary to the project to get everything back on track. Right now I am logged in as the project manager, and so I have full control over all of these things. I'm able to go in and see, right now we have, we're 13% done with the pilot environment development. Maybe I got an update from, if D'Angelo is doing that development, maybe I got an update from him, so I can go in and I can say I want to track the work and say, okay, he put in another 5 hours of work here, so I'm going to bump that up to 10. And now we're 25% done with that particular task. So I can sort of, specify that, updates to the amount of work we've completed on these. I can also go in and edit this, and maybe we get an update that we actually think it's going to be a little bit less work than we thought. So now we're going to say this is going to be a total of 36 hours. And so now we're up to 28% done. Because I'm the project manager, I sort of have full control over, both what the owner can do, which is edit activities and assign resources and do things like that, and then also what the resource can do, which is, the resource is actually completing those tasks. If I log in as the resource, now I'm logging in, and I'm going to go view the same project. and pull up the plan, now I don't have the edit option. I can't go in and make changes to this plan, but I do get this track work icon for any of the tasks that I'm assigned to, and that's going to allow me to go in and update the completion percentage for those tasks. So again, I can update the amount of work I've done. I can go in, if we hit a snag, I can say, I can update my status, and now if I come back in as the project manager or anybody else that has access to this plan, I updated this status, and again, I get an immediate visual cue, that there's something flagged on this task, and I can start drilling in and getting more information. And again, everybody's logging into a single central location to enter this information and to receive it. So everybody has real-time access to all of this data. So again, that's sort of a quick look at viewing my project plan, making a quick edit to it. One of the other things that I can do with these plans, which is really cool, is that I can create a baseline of the plan. One of the things that we're always looking to do as we're going through the life cycle of a project is, okay, we planned out our project, we made our best guesses based on our experience and past history of how long each of these tasks is going to take, but when we get to the end, how do we go back and compare that to where we started? And so I can go in and I can actually, if I do my plan here, I have a baselines tab, and I can set up multiple different baselines. And so you can see our current plan, the status is yellow, the initial baseline was green, we're 29% right now complete, we were 26 when I took an initial baseline. We have all of our estimates for my estimated finish. I've pulled forward from the beginning of January to the end of December here. And then I can go back to the plan, and I can bring up a view that's going to do a comparison to the baseline. So it'll do this variance report. And so the variance report will show me for each of these different items, I took 4 hours of total work out of the entire plan, and I can see here where that's coming from. I can see my estimated baseline, my estimated finish, and my estimated baseline finish. So my current finish is a little bit earlier than my baseline finish, by 3 days. And so I can go in and get these types of comparisons. And I'm not limited to a single baseline. It's not like I baseline it at the start and then I'm always comparing to that. I can go in right now, and I can say I want to create a new baseline. Now I've got another new baseline, and I can choose which of those is the active baseline. So right now I would be comparing my current plan to the demo baseline, and if I go back and make a change to that plan, let's say we expect our bulk loading to go an extra day. The bulk loading is going to go 3 days. Now if I go back and compare it to my baseline, again, we've added 1 day to the finish from where we were before, but I could also go back and now compare my current to the original by changing which one is active. So I can go back, okay, here's my current plan. We're comparing to the demo baseline. I want to compare to the initial baseline. And now I'm back to where you basically gained a couple of days over the original baseline. So, between the initial baseline and our demo baseline, we trimmed 3 days out of the plan, and then we just added 1 back in, and so we can compare the current plan to either of those. So you can create as many baselines throughout the execution of that plan. Every time you get to a milestone, you could go in and create a baseline, and then you can do comparisons to go back and see how that's changed over time. And again, at any point, if you want to see the actual flow, you can always go to the Gantt Explorer, and see where everything's going to line up sort of on that calendar view. Now, the one other thing that we really didn't touch on there is automatic versus manual execution. So let me show you that real quick. If I go to create a new plan, I can set up templates. So I don't have to build these plans from scratch every time. I can build a plan that we're going to use frequently, and I can set it up as a template. And now when I choose to use my Windchill implementation template, it's going to pull in that standard plan. It's going to adjust the start date of that to the current date, and then I can adjust it from there. I can pull in all of the documents that are in there and associated as deliverables. And then I can enter all of my custom attribute information for that. And one of the key things that I'm going to get, options I'm going to get each time I create that, is whether I want to manually control the project execution or automatically execute the activities. And so this is really sort of a fundamental aspect of how you're going to manage this plan, and it's really nice that you get this option because it gives you a lot of control. If I manually control the project execution, now, I think that's how I have this one set up, if I go in and specify, if I look at, as D'Angelo here, so this activity, the pilot environment development, it's scheduled to finish on December 13th. If I'm not coming in and updating this in real time, and I want to go in and just sort of control what dates it claims everything happened on based on maybe follow-up meetings. Maybe I'm going in getting updates from several people in the field, and then as the project manager or as the owner of the task, I may come in several days later and actually update things in Windchill, or maybe I even can update it ahead of time, although I probably shouldn't. If I come in and I mark this complete, just by marking it 100%. Now it's marked that activity complete, and the finish date is still going to be the original assigned finish date. So, if we finish something on December 5th, but we don't get that update that it was completed until 2 days later, and then we come back and mark it complete, it's still going to mark it complete on the 10th. So this is more of a traditional project management path where we're doing manual project execution. Maybe we're still doing some project status meetings, getting those updates, and then coming back and updating the plan to give everybody visibility to it, and then they can see where we're at with that. So again, if I come back over to my main view here, we'll see that task is now complete, and now we're on to the next task, and it hasn't changed the dates. The better, sort of the more complete vision for how we're going to manage this project is the automatic execution. And so that's where we get into tasks. Let me take a look at that, and then we'll go into more of the details on auto execution. So one of the great things about Windchill, both PDM-Link and Project, is the ability to directly assign tasks to users. Those are going to show up in the user's task table directly within Windchill. They can also be emailed to the users. They get an email, and they can just click that link and go right into the task, which is going to be linked to all of the relevant information. If they're approving a promotion request, they're going to have a link to anything that's being promoted. If they have a task to complete a project activity, it's going to have a link to the project and the associated deliverables and all of the explanations in there. And there are a bunch of different types of tasks that can be assigned by Windchill. Right now, we're sort of focused on project tasks, and then we'll come back and look at some of the other ones in more detail in a second. So if I go in and look as my project manager again, I have a second project that was created from this same template, but this one, we use the AutoExecution option. And so with AutoExecution, if I go in and look at who my resource is, my resource for this first activity is D'Angelo Barksdale again, and then my owner for several of these is Stringer. So right now, the first task, which is scheduled to start today, actually this morning, is going to go to D'Angelo. So let's go in and log in as D. We already are. If we look at his tasks, he doesn't have any tasks showing up right now. Let's see if we can figure out why that is. Well, if I come back over here, one of the things you have to do with AutoExecution is you have to tell it to actually start executing the plan. So I created the project. I gave everybody access to it. You know, as a project member, I can see that demonstration project. I can see the deliverables in there. I can check those out and start making changes to them. I can browse to the plan. But again, I'm not going to be able to go in and edit the work on this at all until it assigns me the task. And that task assignment is going to start when I go in as the project manager and I tell it to start the auto execution. So I'm going to tell it, all right, start executing the plan. And when I do that, now it's going to start sending out tasks. And so if I go in as D'Angelo again and go back to my home page, again, I had the first task in the plan there, and so it sent me this, assessment of the current Windchill environment task. If I click on that, it's going to show me all the current information, and it's going to give me the ability to complete that or to track the work. If I log in, as Bodie doesn't have any tasks yet, because if I go back and look at that plan, he's not going to get his task until D'Angelo's task is completed. I've got a predecessor set up there, so I have to complete the first task before that second task gets sent out. And so if I go in and I look at this, let's say, right now, the estimated start of this task is today, or actually it's now about the current time because I went in and actually started it, so it started at that time. Estimated finish is December 12th. We say we've got about 24 hours of work to do on that. So with auto execution, I can go in and update this in real time. I'm actually working within Windchill, and as I complete these activities, I'm going to go in and update my task accordingly. So I'm going to go in as D'Angelo. I'm going to tell it to track the work, and let's say I'm 50% done with this already. So that means I only have 12 hours of remaining work. And I can come back over here. And it's still not going to necessarily update my estimated finish because, I may not do that work linearly. I may do a lot of the work up front and then more, and then less later on, or I may, backload the amount of work. But what it will do is if I go in and complete that task, so let's say I went in, I really cranked out some production here. So I'm going to go in and say this is complete. Now if I look at this as the project manager, I'm going to see it marked this complete at the current time. So I went in, I actually completed that, and because I completed that, now it's going to go ahead and it's going to send the new task to Bodie. And so Bodie has his task to go in and start working on the BOM management planning because we know we're already done with that assessment. So that's sort of the differences with the manual execution. Sort of lets everybody know what assignments they have for that project up front. Okay, here are your assignments, and then as you have updates on them, you can go through and do them. Auto execution is sort of enforcing that project plan more directly within the system and updating, my workflow and all of those things as we go. And so in this case, I can see my estimated finish date is now January 10th. If I go back and look at my variance report, I can see my baseline duration has changed by 2 days. My estimated baseline finish has actually changed by, here's my baseline finish. It was originally scheduled to finish on January 12th. Now it's going to finish on January 10th. And we already took 2.5 days out of this based on finishing that first task quicker. And again, I had already, as soon as I created this, before I started it, I took that initial baseline, and now as we go through and complete things, we can go back and look at how all of those different things have changed, relative to that baseline. So that's auto execution. Again, if I go in and I complete this next task, as D'Angelo, or as Bodie this time, I can go in, I can track my work here. And I can say, I put in 24 hours of work. That task is going to disappear. I'm going to see back in my main BOM view, that task is now complete. We're on to the additional Windchill planning. And again, it's taken additional time out of where my estimated finish is going to be, based on finishing that early. So again, 2 different ways you can approach it. You aren't even locked in with the template. Again, I can build the template with the overall plan, and as I initiate a plan from that template, I have the flexibility of, okay, this one, maybe we're outsourcing this part of the design to an outside partner that we work with. So we know they're not going to be logged in directly giving us updates. We're going to use manual execution for that project. I can still keep track of everything, and everybody can log in and have the documentation managed there. I can see the status. I'm just sort of updating it manually, and we're not actually using it to enforce those task assignments. If we're doing something internally, now we can use auto execution. Everybody knows they're looking for those tasks, and when they get it, they know what they need to do, and they can keep that task updated. All right, let me jump back over here and look at. I mentioned there are several different ways we can assign tasks. So we actually just looked at assigned activities. We looked at how the resources, and again, the resource for an activity is the user that actually is completing that work, the user that is writing the document that is the deliverable, or building the CAD model and creating the drawing that's going to be the deliverable for that activity. But we also have the owner for those activities. And the owner can also get assignments. And so if I go in and look at my project here, the owner for some of these activities is Stringer. And so what does he see when he logs in? So what he, let's see. So right now he is not seeing anything for that particular project. And the reason he's not seeing anything for that particular project is that we've already begun the execution of it. Remember I said the owner is sort of like a mini project manager that can go in and make changes to those things. And so if I go into that project, I can go in and I can tell it I want to suspend the plan. And that's if I realize I need to make changes downstream. Hey, we need to add additional activities, or we need to do things like that. If I suspend that plan, If I suspend that plan, now he's going to see all of the activities that he's assigned as an owner on. So I can see the difference between being assigned as a resource. He's going to get that task automatically when it gets there, and then the activities where he's assigned as the owner, because on those activities, he's going to be able to go in and actually modify that, and again, change the expected duration, assign additional resource, do all of those types of things. So the owner isn't going to get that task right when it gets to there and it starts that part of the project like the resource does. They're going to have access to all of those items sort of ahead of time in order to go in and sort of build that plan out. But once I start the execution, then they lose the ability to modify those without pausing the execution. Again, difference between auto and manual execution. With manual execution, I never have to start the execution of the plan. I don't have to pause it to make changes. We're more just sort of making changes on the fly whenever we want. With auto execution, we have to sort of specifically pause, make our changes, and then restart to send those tasks back out if we've made changes to that plan. The other types of tasks that you can have in Windchill, in addition to just the ProjectLink tasks that we talked about, we build out this plan and we're controlling the assignments to the users through this project plan. We can also have workflow tasks. Workflow tasks are commonly used in PDM-Link, and therefore building out can be a fairly complex, very repeatable process. It's always going to be exactly the same every time. We can change which users are participating in it, but it's always going to be the same workflow, and we can build some pretty advanced logic in that. And so workflow tasks can be assigned through life cycles. So as soon as you create a document in your product in Windchill, it sees, oh, this is a document of a certain type. It's going to be driven by this particular life cycle with this associated workflow. And every time I create that document type, it's going to get that same workflow and it's going to go through the exact same process. Very repeatable, very predictable. We set it up one time and then it's just always going to behave that same way. In ProjectLink, we can also use workflows in a more sort of ad hoc way. We can sort of assign them on the fly, and we can do that through routing. And so an example of routing is if I go to my project and we created this assessment document and we just want to get a sign-off on this Windchill assessment document before we move on to the next phase of the project, this isn't something that it's not always going to go through the same process. Maybe it does different things for different customers. So instead of having this assigned through a life cycle where we created this document and it gets the life cycle, it's going to go through it, we can select that and we can just say, hey, I want to route this through a workflow. And when we do that, it's going to give us a list of possible processes that we've defined as available for routing. So this is just going to go through a quick approval routing. When I do that, it's going to say, here are the users that have access to this project, who's going to be the approver or the author or the reviewer. So we're going to say string has to approve it and the org admin is going to review it. I can put in additional instructions. I can give it a due date. And I can also define external participants where I can go in and just include an email address and tell it to include that document, and it'll actually send the file out to those users to sort of take a look at it and give us external feedback, even if they're not actually a Windchill participant. Then when I hit finish, it's going to send out the tasks and everything based on the workflow that we selected for that routing. So again, we sort of go through and we sort of set up how are we going to route it through this process, when we need to do that. If we're using sort of the standard life cycle workflow strategy that's typically used just for doing your day-to-day data management, as soon as I create that document, it knows it's always going to get the same workflow. So that's kind of cool, the ability to go in, just within here, pick a document and say, okay, I want to send this off to some people to approve it. I want to keep a record of that, and I can choose which process it wants to go through right now. It's not going to be dependent on the type of document it is or where it was created or anything like that. Another option you have for assigning tasks. So workflow tasks, again, the workflow is very repeatable. It has some advanced logic. You can, say, when you get that approval task, you can say this isn't complete. You can loop back to earlier in the process. It doesn't just always flow forward, sort of like the project plan. And it gives you the flexibility of assigning it through those life cycles or the routings. The project activities, that's all built off of that project plan and assigning users those tasks based on their assignment as the owner or the resource for those tasks. And then we also have something called an action item. What's an action item? Well, one of the things you do a lot of times during the execution of a project is you have meetings to discuss where you're at and how do we get back on track if we're falling behind and we're going to miss deadlines. And so we actually have the ability to track that information in Windchill using meetings. So I can go in Windchill and I can create a meeting. I can give it a subject or a name. I can specify the date and time. How long is it going to be? Who are the participants that are going to participate in that meeting? And what are the objects that we're going to discuss? And I can tie into the actual objects, the documents and all of those things that we want to discuss in that meeting. So that's great, but the way we're going to communicate that people need to show up to a meeting is through Microsoft Outlook. We're going to create a meeting on the calendar. We're going to send everybody that invitation. They're going to ignore that or hopefully accept it, and when it gets a little bit before meeting time, it's going to send a reminder. So I can actually tie Outlook into Windchill. So if I say I want to do a project review this afternoon at 3 o'clock, I'm going to create a new activity on my calendar. I'm going to go to Windchill and say create a new meeting in Windchill. I'm going to pick the demonstration project that I want to put that meeting in. And now I can go in and define, so we're going to review the Windchill assessment that we did. And I'm going to schedule this for this afternoon at 3 p.m. It's going to be 60 minutes. I can put in teleconference information. We're going to put this in the main conference room. I can put together an agenda. I'm going to specify my participants. So I'm going to pick them from Windchill. They're already down here. So I added my participants. I can go add meeting objects. So again, if I want to discuss the actual document that we put together, this is going to be the Windchill assessment document in my demonstration project. And so again, I can, I'm not just sending out this meeting, I'm linking it to what are we actually going to discuss. People can review that ahead of time. They can say, add additional information to that. And so now I've got a link in my Outlook invite. Here's a link to view the information for that meeting. Here's a list of the invitees. And if I go back to my actual appointment, when I click invite, all of those Windchill users have email addresses associated to them, so it's going to automatically set them up. And I can send them the invitation, and those are all going to bounce because I made up those email addresses. But again, you set it up. Here's all the information we need in Windchill. It propagates that to my invite. I get my undeliverables because those aren't real people. But now I can come back over to Windchill. Here's my meeting. When we go in and we actually do that meeting, we can pull up the information on it. I can add minutes, so if somebody's taking notes and we're going to put minutes, I can add the minutes into Windchill. We're going to have a historical record of that. It's not just getting emailed out and then everybody has to search to try to find, where are those meeting minutes, what did we do during this? And then when I come in here, I can set up an action items tab, make that available to everybody. And so as we go through that meeting, and at the end of every meeting, there's always assignments. Okay, you're supposed to go do this. You need to follow up with the customer and get this information. Instead of those just being things that we email out as part of those minutes, we can go in and create these action items. And so I can say, okay, this action item is going to be, you know, get missing info from customer. I'm going to make stringer the owner of that. I can give it a due date. That's going to be due Friday. You know, I can have all this additional information, estimated start and finish dates. I can put in additional information, and we can add you know, custom information to this. When I finish, there we go. We've got this new task. And now we have, and it's got a unique icon. This is an action item. So again, very ad hoc task. Out of this meeting, we had specific things. It's not something that's a specific line item in the project plan. You know, it's not necessarily tied to a specific document. It's just, hey, we need to do some additional things. We want to send somebody a task. We want to be able to track that. We can do that with action items. And you don't necessarily have to do that from a meeting. I can also just go into the project tasks, and I can create new action items from here. But the meeting is a great way to do that. If I've set up that meeting, again, I've pulled together all of my documentation that we're going to be discussing that's already in Windchill. Now I have my Outlook invite. We're going to store our meeting minutes with that, and now we can also assign our action items and go back and follow up. Hey, we had that meeting last Friday. What was everybody supposed to do? Here's our list of action items, you know, and here's the status of all of those items that we can see right in the same system where we're managing that project plan. So again, a number of different ways to assign tasks. Obviously, the main one is, you know, for what we're talking about today, is just through the activities in that plan, assigning those activities to the resources to go through and complete them and update the status. But we can also do some of these other things, you know, for the activities that have to happen outside of those core plan activities. So running out of time on the webinar today, just a couple other ProjectLink benefits we really didn't get into. You know, the ability to collaborate. You know, if you do want to share some design information or documentation with customers or suppliers or other external sources, rather than inviting them to your core PDM-Link product that has all of your data and it's hard to sort of isolate what they can see, you can invite them to a project and just share from the product the relevant information that they need to see. And now that's a private area. They only have access to the information that's in that project. And then you have the ability to check any changes back into your product later on. You can also link your project to your product for deliverables. So there's deliverables within our project plan where we link to documents that were stored in that project. We can also link to documents or CAD data or things like that that are stored in a PDM-Link product. So we don't have to just have everything in the project. We can have links between our project and our product that we're developing information for. And then we also have some reporting tools. And so, you know, I have the ability to go in and build, you know, for some of my projects, some reports that actually give us some drill down capabilities and can allow us to sort of quickly go in and view information. You know, if I look at this specific project, I can just go into my reports and I can view a dashboard report for that specific project. Or I can go up to the organization level and view a dashboard report across all of my projects. So now I can see a breakdown of open versus items not started versus closed, which I don't have anything here. Open work items per status, green versus unavailable versus not applicable. If I click on one of these, it's going to drill down, and so now it's giving me a breakdown. As I click on each of these different segments, I can drill down and actually see, okay, what are all of the green activities? What are all of the not available versus unavailable? I don't know why those are two different things in this setup, risk items, percent done. I'm able to interactively click and drill down on these things. Those are some of the out-of-the-box reports that can be available. You can also create your own custom reports to go in and access your own specific information. So again, a lot of other things that you can do with ProjectLink. We focused on sort of the core project plan and the activities that go with that. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to us for additional information. If you have questions, here's that information again. At this point, I didn't see any questions pop up. Actually, I didn't see any questions pop up sort of throughout the presentation here. So I'll open it up at this point. If anybody does have any questions, you can raise your hand over in the interface, and I can temporarily unmute you, or you can just type them into the questions box in the webinar interface, and I can try to answer those.